So throughout my level 1 fieldwork, I worked with 6 kids the entire time. So I decided to pick one, and we are going to call him Parker. So Parker lives at home with his two parents, so a mother and a father, and he also has two siblings. He is 5 years old, and he is a white male. So he does have a couple classroom responsibilities. So his responsibilities include cleaning up his mess after they do a project or whatever, standing in line quietly, um, nothing more extreme than all the other students in there. He does have some hobbies. Since he is only in kindergarten, his hobbies really include going outside to play recess, and also he enjoys playing cars with his brother and sister. So, with that, going into his diagnosis, I am unaware of his diagnosis. So, in my paper, I just stated that his diagnosis is unknown. So, for that, he does not have any comorbidities. If he did, that would just mean multiple disorders all affecting one person. Um, Comorbidities do affect OT intervention in a lot of ways because with comorbidities, you don't know necessarily which symptoms to treat right away and if they are always apparent on certain days. So that's why comorbidities make it hard for OT interventions. So in Parker's case, though, his physical and social environment they remain fairly stable throughout day to day. So it's not that hard to determine which OT intervention to do. So, moving on to Parker's occupational performance in regards to his client factors and limitations. When I think about his limitation, the only obvious limitation that he has is him being a little bit shy in the beginning because it doesn't fully allow him to express who he is and allow him to succeed at his full capability. One of the client factors in the AOTA framework is a value, and they talk about value as in being something that the individual believes is right or important to do. So, in Parker's case, something that he thought was needed to be done and what was important to him was having everything organized. So, an example would just be color coded, and that's not the only thing that it's limited to. He loved to have everything set up exactly how he wanted to do it. Moving on to Parker's performance patterns, the framework breaks it down into habits, routines, and roles. So Parker has a habit of always standing, which could be a useful habit because it does build the core endurance, because that is something that we really focus on in OTA. So that is a useful habit of him just standing. No matter what he's working on, he's always standing. So then moving on to routines. So I feel like the school system really focuses on routines. So you get to school, you put your backpack away, you take your coat off, everything of that sort. So right now, one of Parker's routines is just simply going to school and then following the teacher's directions. And then his roles. So again, since he is only in kindergarten, his roles are fairly simple. He has a role of a student and a friend. Performance skills are also broken down into three main categories. So the three main categories of performance skills are motor motor skills, process skills, and then also communication skills. So motor skills were the main focus in this level 1 fieldwork placement. We really focused on the posture, the mobility, and the coordination. In Parker's scenario, he was very well developed in his motor skills. Um, he knew how to sit or stand properly to get the job done. He was very coordinated. When I did my assessments that I will talk about in a few minutes, he was able to hold the paper but also hold the scissors, so he was very well developed. So moving on to his process skills, those are also broken down into further categories such as energy, knowledge, organization, organizing space and objects, and then also adaptation. So I would say his process skills were really well developed also because he knew how to initiate any of the projects that I had him do. If I wanted him to fix something, he knew how to do it. He knew which tools were used for the project. So that's also known as knowledge, taking one skill from one thing and adding it to the other project, if that makes sense. And then lastly, his communication skills. So although he talks well when he does talk, I would just say that was one of his downfalls and that he could use improvement on, only for the simple fact that I did mention that he was shy. So he wasn't expressing himself as easily as the other students. So after observing Parker for the time being, I realized that his occupations were very limited. He really only enjoys and takes part in playing outside at recess, and then, like I said before, playing cards with his brother and sister. So now we are going to move on the intervention that I focused on, and then some reliable sources. So their wants and their needs, so relating back to their short-term goals and their long-term goals. So after meeting with Parker the first time, and probably everybody else who realized this, you couldn't really have, for say, long-term goals. His long-term goal was basically to proceed into the first grade, and more like his short-term goals were fine motor skills and handwriting. So that is what I based my intervention on, were his short-term goals. So with this one, I really wanted to do both. I wanted to do fine motor, but then I also wanted to work on the handwriting in a way of focusing on his grasp. So as you can see, I did lacing. So I have these different, they are tennis shoes, but you can see that they have holes in them. So that is where we are going to lace. These aren't exactly the ones I used during my session, but they're very similar. So I provided different colors, different themes of what they could lace, and then they also have different color strings. So with that, they are still able to express themselves and pick out a color they like, pick out a shape they like, just to include that. So in order for them to do this, they have to hold it with one hand and then the string in the other hand. So if you can see how I'm pinching it, it is supposed to be focusing on the, if you can see it, the tripod grasp. So you put it through one of the holes. So if you can see what I am doing, you put it through one of the holes and then through the other side. So really that is focusing on the tripod grasp to improve their handwriting, and then also their fine motor, because you have to get it through the small hole. This really does help a lot of other things, hand-eye coordination, um, things of that sort. So it was a really beneficial intervention, I would say, and a lot of the kids really enjoyed it. Session, and then also at the end. One of the very first times that I met with my students, we did the assessment on a paper that looked similar to this. So with these shapes, I asked them to just look at them and then write them again on the line below. After the first time, a lot of them wanted just to trace them, and I feel that may have been because that's what they do in the classroom. So I just had to tell them the directions very clearly of how to do it on the line. And then below it says name, and they were just to write their name and we were to assess it. When I did this, one of the last times I saw them, I realized that they followed directions a lot better. Some of them, most of them remembered that they have already did this, so they kind of already knew. In regards to Parker, he started off with a really well assessment. So although he did improve a little bit, he was overall pretty beneficial. So then we also had to do another assessment in regards to this one, and all it was a circle, square, and then a straight line on the piece of paper, and we had them cut it out. So this worked on obviously their grip on the scissors, but also being able to hold the other piece of paper. And so that concludes my video. Thank you.